Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I'm sure right now all the stores are frantically taking the Halloween candy off their shelves and replacing it all with Christmas candy. This past week, the TV has been full of scary movies, again, all because of Halloween. In fact, as incongruous as it might seem, all this stuff about spooks and goblins, and even calling it Halloween, has its roots in the church and a special church day. November 1st is All Saints' Day, the day we remember those who have died in the previous year. We celebrate that they have left the church militant and entered the church triumphant and are one of God's saints. So in medieval times, people believed that on the night before All Saints, the spirits of those who had died were making their way to the church for the worship service. In those days, All Saints' Day was called All Hallows' Day, and the night before became All Hallows' Eve, and then eventually Halloween. So all this focus on the supernatural this past week got me thinking about the ways that creeps into the rest of our lives too. So I thought we might have a week of reflections this week that are a bit lighter and more fun, and we could talk about superstitions. First, let's talk about what superstitions are. Interestingly, most superstitions have a clear religious implication, but that religious connection is almost always to paganism or a false belief. As St. Thomas Aquinas wrote, "Superstition is a vice contrary to religion, not that it offers more to the divine worship than true religion, but because it offers divine worship either to whom it ought not, or in a manner it ought not." There's a lot in that, so let me say it again. Superstition is a vice contrary to religion, not that it offers more to the divine worship than true religion, but because it offers divine worship either to whom it ought not, or in a manner it ought not. Maybe a couple of examples would help. First, let's talk about an example of worship to whom it ought not. And for that, we'll use the superstition of a broken mirror. You know what that means. Breaking a mirror results in 7 years of bad luck. Well, in 500 BC, the Greeks were using shallow earthenware or glass bowls of water for divination, as something like a crystal ball to help see the future. The water was supposed to reveal the future of the person whose image the water held. It was a mirror that the seer used. If, however, the person dropped the bowl, the interpretation was that the person had no future. The person would either soon die, or the future was so dire that the gods were sparing the person the heartache of a glance into it. The first-century Romans believed health and life came in 7-year cycles, and since a mirror reflected the person, a broken image meant 7 years of misfortune. What all this means is that the broken mirror superstition is based in a belief that life is controlled by gods that we as Christians aren't supposed to believe in. That's worship to whom it ought not. The other way is worship in a manner it ought not. Some superstitions have Christian foundations, but misuse or misunderstand God. These superstitions tend to use God like magic. You see, magic is trying to get supernatural forces to do your will, but true faith is submitting your will to the will of the supernatural force. But all too often we try to use God like magic to do our will. In some places, people fan the pages of the Bible before the faces of people who are sick in order to heal them. Another superstition like that is that communion wine is seen as a cure for whooping cough. That's worship in a manner it ought not be. Superstitions arose as people tried to explain what they saw in this world. Their lack of understanding led to a belief in spirits active in the world. We will talk about this a little more tomorrow and on into the week. We'll look at rabbit's feet, horseshoes, wishbones, walking under a ladder, and more. In the meantime, let's try to focus our worship to whom we ought to give it, and in a manner we ought to give it. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.